Welcome back to our channel, where we always have the latest and greatest insights into the thrilling drama of Port Charles. It is always a genuine pleasure when we see a familiar face return to the vibrant, chaotic streets of Port Charles, and the recent reappearance of Martin Gray is certainly no exception. For those of us who have followed General Hospital for years, we know that Martin is a character of immense complexity, often hiding a razor-sharp legal mind behind his charming, folksy Southern drawl. His return is not just a casual visit, it is a calculated move that is already sending shockwaves through the canvas. When Martin steps back into the picture, you can almost guarantee that legal loopholes are about to be exploited and hidden truths are about to be dragged, kicking and screaming into the harsh light of day. I have always found his character fascinating because he straddles that very thin line between being a self-serving opportunist and a fiercely loyal advocate for those he cares about. This time, his presence feels heavier, more purposeful, and undeniably dangerous for anyone standing in his way. The intrigue immediately deepens when we consider that Mayor Laura Collins has personally tasked Martin with some highly sensitive, crucial assignments. As longtime viewers, we understand the profound and often complicated sibling dynamic between Laura and Martin. Laura is a woman who carries the weight of the city on her shoulders, and for her to quietly delegate important tasks to her brother suggests that she needs someone who can operate outside the rigid confines of the Port Charles Police Department. She needs someone who is not afraid to bend the rules to achieve a just outcome. I cannot help but feel a swell of pride seeing Laura utilize her family connections in such a strategic manner. It shows her evolution from a legendary romantic heroine into a pragmatic, formidable leader who knows exactly how to play the political and legal games of her city. By bringing Martin into the fold, Laura has unleashed a legal bulldog, and the consequences of this decision are already beginning to unfold in the most dramatic ways imaginable. The primary focus of Martin's newfound crusade is none other than Curtis Ashford, a man who is currently facing one of the most harrowing chapters of his life. According to the latest developments, Curtis is being backed into a corner, agonizing over whether he should accept a devastating plea deal. The timing of this legal nightmare could not be more tragic, as it coincides directly with the impending birth of his child with Portia Robinson. As a fan, my heart absolutely breaks for Curtis. We have watched him fight so hard to build a legitimate, honorable life, leaving his past indiscretions behind to become a pillar of the community and a devoted family man. The thought of him being ripped away from Portia just as they are about to welcome their new baby is a storyline that tugs at every emotional string. It is a classic soap opera trope, the ticking clock of a major life event clashing with a looming tragedy. But it is executed here with such raw emotional stakes that you cannot help but be entirely invested in his fight for freedom. This is precisely where Martin Gray steps in, taking on the mantle of Curtis's defense attorney to protect his rights and fight this unjust plea deal. I must say, pairing Martin and Curtis is a stroke of absolute genius by the writers. Curtis is a man of action, a former private investigator who relies on his instincts and physical presence, whereas Martin is a creature of the courtroom, relying on intellect, manipulation, and legal precedent. Together, they form an unlikely but incredibly formidable alliance. Martin is not just treating this as another billable hour. There is a palpable sense of determination in his actions, a drive to establish a new standard of innocence for Curtis. I believe Martin sees this case as a way to prove his own worth, perhaps to Laura or perhaps to himself, by saving a man who genuinely deserves to be saved. He is systematically dismantling the case against Curtis, and it is an absolute thrill to watch this brilliant legal mind go to work. However, a hero is only as good as the villain he faces, and Martin finds himself locked in a bitter, high-stakes legal war with none other than Rick Lansing. Oh, Rick Lansing. Just hearing that name brings back a flood of memories for us veteran viewers, does it not? Rick has always been one of the most deliciously cunning and morally bankrupt legal minds in the history of Port Charles. He is a man who holds grudges like they are precious heirlooms and will use every dirty trick in the book to secure a conviction. The clash between Martin and Rick is shaping up to be a battle of titans. Rick is pushing hard for this plea deal, trying to crush Curtis under the weight of the legal system, while Martin is pushing back with equal ferocity. I find myself leaning closer to the screen during their encounters, analyzing every veiled threat and legal maneuver. It is a game of chess played by two grandmasters, and neither man is willing to concede even an inch of ground. What makes this legal battle so utterly fascinating is how it is unexpectedly intertwining with a completely different unresolved mystery. The tragic accident that befell Jordan Ashford. For a long time, the details surrounding Jordan's accident have been murky, a dark cloud hanging over the canvas that we all knew would eventually burst. Now, the new legal adjustments and investigations spearheaded by Martin in his war against Rick are inadvertently shining a spotlight on the truth of what really happened to Jordan. How does a current criminal case connect to a past vehicular accident? In the brilliant, convoluted world of General Hospital, the past never truly stays buried. It seems that the evidence Martin is uncovering to clear Curtis is directly linked to the identity of the person who caused Jordan's accident. This is the kind of intricate, multi-layered storytelling that keeps us older fans coming back decade after decade. We love watching the puzzle pieces snap together, revealing a picture we never quite expected. And the picture that is being revealed is nothing short of explosive, because the evidence points directly to Brook Quartermaine as the culprit behind Jordan's accident. When I first processed this revelation, I was both shocked and completely unsurprised. Brook has always been a character driven by impulse, passion, and a frustrating lack of foresight. She is fiery, fiercely loyal to her loved ones, but incredibly reckless. Can we not easily envision a scenario where a distracted, panicked, or emotionally distraught Brook caused that accident and fled the scene out of sheer terror? It fits her psychological profile perfectly. Yet, despite her many flaws, Brook is not fundamentally evil. The guilt of knowing what she did to Jordan, a woman who is deeply respected and connected to her own social circle, must be eating her alive from the inside out. I feel a profound sense of pity for her, even as I condemn her actions. She is a girl playing a very dangerous adult game, and the bill has finally come due. But of course, a Quartermaine rarely faces the consequences of their actions alone, which brings us to the formidable, undeniable presence of Tracy Quartermaine. The revelation that Tracy has been actively covering up Brook crime is a plot twist that feels as comfortable and familiar as an old sweater. Tracy is the ultimate matriarch, a woman who learned at the knee of the ruthless Edward Quartermaine. To Tracy, the family name and the protection of her own blood are paramount, superseding all laws, morals, and ethics. If her granddaughter made a catastrophic mistake, Tracy's immediate instinct would not be to march her to the police station. It would be to bury the evidence under a mountain of Quartermaine money and influence. I have to applaud the writers for staying so true to Tracy's character. She is fiercely protective, icy, and calculating. She likely rationalized the cover-up as a necessary evil to save Brook future, completely disregarding the pain and suffering inflicted upon Jordan in the process. The tension escalates to a boiling point because Martin Gray, through his relentless pursuit of justice for Curtis, has managed to unearth this heavily guarded Quartermaine secret. This is where my admiration for Martin's investigative skills truly peaks. He did not stumble upon this truth by accident. He meticulously followed the money, the discrepancies in the police reports, and the subtle shifts in the Quartermaine family's behavior. Martin is a man who knows how to read the room, and he realized that the key to defeating Rick Lansing and saving Curtis lay hidden in the manicured gardens of the Quartermaine estate. Discovering that Brook caused the accident and Tracy covered it up gives Martin the ultimate trump card. But the burning question that arises is, what kind of man is Martin Gray going to be in this moment? Does he hand this evidence over to the authorities, ensuring justice for Jordan but destroying Brook life? The answer true to Martin's deeply pragmatic and morally flexible nature, is much more complicated and infinitely more entertaining. Instead of seeking pure justice, Martin chooses the path of maximum leverage. He decides to blackmail the Quartermaine family. This decision is a masterclass in soap opera conflict. Martin is essentially holding a loaded gun to the head of one of the most powerful families in Port Charles. He knows that Tracy will do absolutely anything to keep Brook Lynn out of a prison cell, and he is fully prepared to exploit that desperation to achieve his own goals. While some might view Martin's blackmail as a descent into villainy, I see it as a necessary, albeit dirty, tactic in a rigged game. He is fighting Rick Lansing, a man who plays by no rules, so Martin has decided to throw the rulebook out the window as well. He is using the sins of the Quartermaines to buy the freedom of an innocent man. It is a Robin Hood scenario, but with legal briefs and extortion instead of bows and arrows. The sheer audacity of Martin attempting to strong-arm Tracy Quartermaine is thrilling to contemplate. We are talking about Tracy, a woman who has eaten stronger men for breakfast and spit out their bones. The inevitable confrontation between these two characters is bound to be legendary. I can vividly imagine the scene. Martin, with his polite, infuriatingly calm Southern smile, laying out the irrefutable evidence of Brook Lynn's crime, while Tracy stares back with eyes made of absolute ice, her mind racing to find a way to crush him. Tracy is not a woman who takes kindly to being cornered, and she certainly does not take orders from a small-town lawyer, no matter who his sister is. However, Martin holds all the cards. The blackmail scheme creates a suffocating pressure cooker within the Quartermaine mansion. The internal strife this will cause, the arguments between Tracy and Brook Lynn, the fear of discovery, the desperate scramble for a counterattack will undoubtedly provide us with weeks of riveting television. But how exactly does blackmailing the Quartermaines help Curtis Ashford? This is where Martin's grand strategy comes into sharp focus. Martin is not asking for a payout, he is demanding influence. The Quartermaines possess deep pockets, extensive political connections, and the ability to pull strings that even the mayor cannot touch. Martin is likely forcing Tracy to use her vast resources to dismantle Rick Lansing's case against Curtis. Perhaps Tracy has to call in a favor with a corrupt judge, or perhaps she has to manufacture evidence that completely exonerates Curtis. By tying the fate of the Quartermaines to the fate of Curtis Ashford, Martin has ensured that Tracy has no choice but to become his silent, furious accomplice. It is a brilliant high-wire act of manipulation, placing Martin firmly in the driver's seat of this entire narrative. He has taken control, dictating the terms of engagement to both Rick Lansing and the Quartermaine dynasty.